Not many people have the honor of introducing a living legend. I do. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for none other than Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Would you like to? Maybe halfway through. Okay. I'm going to take just 1 minute to indulge myself. For all those childhood friends who happen to be in the audience, whom I used to have all-night video marathon sessions of Mr. B's films, did you for 1 second think that I would be on the same stage in conversation with the superstar himself? This is a huge milestone for me, as it is for almost anybody who has ever met or worked with Mr. B. Such is the power and presence of this man. For 45 years, he has reflected and shaped society. When he got angry, the nation got angry. When he got injured, the nation came to a standstill. And now, when the common man of the nation has taken to the streets with Anna, he made Satyagrah. Mr. B, I could talk to you about absolutely anything endlessly, but luckily we've been given a framework for this session, which is cinema as a reflection of society. So let's just start with that. In the late 60s and early 70s, there was great public unrest and disillusionment in society. There was this growing feeling amongst the youth of the nation that if you wanted justice, you had to take the law into your own hands. And you embodied this resentment by emerging as the angry young man. Were your films merely reflecting what was going on in society, or were they in some way also encouraging or uniting that feeling of resentment and in a way urging the youth of the nation into a movement, perhaps like the JP movement?
Thank you so much for having me here first, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your wonderful applause as I walk in. It's difficult to get an applause at 71, but thank you so much for it. What you said was more an instigation by the people who write films. And if credit has to be given to the mood of the country at the moment and how it is reflected in cinema, you will have to credit the writers of the time. So if you felt that there was a moment in a film which talked about anger, which talked about going against the system, wanting to fight alone, then Salim Javed, who wrote the script of Zanjeer at that point of time, will have to be credited because they were the ones that thought about it. And many a times this question is posed to me, but I'm merely another actor who was just happened to be lucky enough to get that role.
You're not merely anything, Mr. Bachchan.
Yeah, right now I am, but many a times I used to ask them, an answer to the question that you just put, and they would say that they felt that there was a kind of mood in the country with the emergency looming and the anguish and the wrath and the dissatisfaction and the discontent among the public. They felt that they needed to write a script which embodied one man who would take on the system. And that's how Zanjeer was formed, and that's how the so-called angry young man, I hate these epithets, but that's how it was born.
So for all those people who didn't have marathon sessions of your films, would you oblige us with some of the lines of, you can call him anything. I call him angry young man, but you can call that character anything. And if you don't remember, I have some of my favorite ones here.
Okay, thank you. These are from at least 5 different films.
Of course. I said marathon sessions, all night long.
One of them they've just been hearing as I was standing backstage, so it'll look very odd for me to repeat it. Uff, tumhare usool, tumhare adarsh. Kis kaam ke hain tumhare ye usool, jo ek waqt ki roti nahi bana sakte hain. That was from Diwar. Thank you.
Another early film of yours, Kala Patthar, which actually talks about the blood-sucking capitalism of coal owners. And what is fascinating about that film is that it actually preceded mass nationalization of coal mines. Now, as a young actor, did it give you a high, or did it scare you that your films were actually wielding so much power and shaping a nation's thought?
No, I had no idea about this, and this is the first time I'm hearing it, actually. But Kala Patthar was more about a very complex human being who was with the Navy, who abandoned his ship, which is a norm in the Navy. You don't abandon a ship when it's sinking. And he was court-martialed, he was defamed, and he had to live with this, this kind of stigma within him. And he left the place where he was, and he went to the coal mines to perhaps lose himself in that environment, and then how he comes out victorious by doing something very brave. That's what the story was. But when Salim Javed narrated the script to me, I liked the idea of him going to the coal mines, primarily because when I was working in Kolkata, in a managing agency firm, I was put in the coal department, and I spent many months in the coal mines in Dhanbad and Asansol, and actually saw how the coal miners worked, what the system was, spending hours and hours going into the coal mines, seeing the working conditions and the tragedies that used to happen. And many of the events that you saw in the film were actually narrations of what I had told Salim Javed, what had actually happened when I was there. So that's what it was all about. To put together the fact that, you know, there was nationalization of the coal industry because of this film is a little far-fetched.
No, it's not far-fetched. The films did wield that kind of power in those days. I think you're being a bit modest about it, but there is a line that gives me shivers till date. And here we go.
ये कोयले की खान एक अजगर है सेठ साहब जो रोज अनगिनत लोगों को निगल कर उसे पीस कर जिस्म से खून का एक एक कतरा चूस कर एक लाश के रूप में उगल देता है. I'm just the voice, but the thought, the thinking, the words belong to Salim Javed.
But also apparently to your experiences and what you saw.
But that is more, you know, the practical side of things. But how to put that into words, into emotion, cinematic emotion, is the work of the writers, actually.
And how to bring it alive is the work of Mr. Bachchan.
Well, we try.
Well, fortunately, our society is not just bogged down with serious issues, and it wasn't even back then. We knew how to have fun and let our hair down, just like you did. You played angry young man, you also played funny man, and you also lent your voice to many a song. Now, you know what I'm going to say next. So either...
And you know what's going to happen after that.
You're going to sing.
I'm going to walk out.
And the whole of this hall will follow you. So choose where you're going to go. So either my favorite, Mr. Natwar Lal's song, or Jiski Bivi Moti.
Oh, gosh.
And you guys have to join in, okay?
This is the most embarrassing session that I've ever faced. Do we have an orchestra?
Do we have the music? Come on. Jiski Bivi Moti, thank you. I wonder whether in those days when, you know, people weren't doing one film and they were sort of jumping from set to set, and at one moment you're the angry young man beating up people, and the other you're the simpleton comic character. Was it tough to don so many avatars at the same time?
We really didn't have a choice because filmmaking at that time was a little haphazard. It still is, but not so much as it was then. It requires a little bit of understanding how films were made at that point of time. It was a very individual profession, more like a mama papa kind of a organization where somebody stood up and borrowed some money to make a film. And Initially, what they used to do was, in order to be able to substantiate the borrowing, they would make all the exciting moments of the film within a week. So perhaps an action sequence or a song. These were very attractive to investors. And having done a week's shooting, they would put all this together, go and present it to the prospective investor and the financier. And then he would decide whether he wanted to further finance the film. And by the time he was deciding what he would do or whether he was going to finance the film or not, we were just twiddling our thumbs and sitting at home. So we thought of, taking on some other projects because there was an uncertainty as to whether this project would actually go on or not. And that is how we all started working in several films at the same time.
So you talk about this sort of haphazard way, in a certain creative chaos, I would call it. There were times when lines were given to you as makeup was being put on and you were going on camera. And there's a lot of rumors about one of my favorite dialogues, which is English is a very funny language monologue from Namak Halal, which they said that you made it up on the spot.
You don't have it there, have you? Oh, gosh. No, this can't be done. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
You finish what you have to say.
No, I have nothing more to say.
Yeah. This entire scene was impromptu. And there was nothing written. And it was the first day of that film. And it was the third shift of the day, which starts at 10 o'clock at night and finishes 6 o'clock the next morning. And I'd already done 2 films that day on 2 different shifts. And you come at 10 o'clock, and that's the first day of shoot, which is always very nerve-wracking. And you have to do the scene. And I was just given a brief by Prakash Mehra ji, that this is the situation, and if you can, talk something about cricket, talk something about the fact that your English is better than your Haryanvi, which was what the character was, that's how it is. So Prakash ji had a bad habit. He would, if there was a humorous scene in the film, he would actually, and while it was being enacted, he would start laughing. And that would disturb the sound recordist, and he would say, we'll have to retake the scene because we've got extra sound coming in. So I said, can you just leave the set and put the camera on, and we'll call you when it's all over. And that's what had happened. So they just put the camera on, we just rattled off something. And that's how the scene was put together.
So you just made it up on the spot?
Yeah, everything was made up on the set, yeah.
You don't remember it?
Not at all.
So if I was to tell you to make up something now, could you?
Yeah. One of the things that we learn in acting is that when you're in an interview and there are certain things that you cannot answer, you leave.
Moving on.
That's this generation's terminology. Yeah.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on. I let this one pass.
Thank you so much.
Very early in your career, you were also diversifying into middle-class, softer, more romantic roles. Now, let's say you were not married then, which you were. You were not married then. How would you woo and romance a lady back then? And who would you perhaps would have chosen to woo, not Jayaji, apart from Jayaji?
Yeah, Bahida Rahman.
How would you have romanced her or wooed her?
It's a little late in the day to tell you all that.
It's never too late, Mr. Bachchan. You should know that. You embody it.
Oh, gosh. Well, I just felt that Vahida ji, who's always been one of my favorites, along with Dilip Saab, was just the epitome of everything that was Indian and simplistic and very soft and gentle. And I would probably, recite a poem or something like that. Oh, gosh. One of the things I have learned in this interview is to be very careful of what you say before you say it. मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं कि तुम होती तो कैसा होता, तुम ये कहती, तुम वो कहती, तुम इस बात पे हैरान होती तो उस बात पे कितनी हंसती, तुम होती तो ऐसा होता, तुम होती तो वैसा होता, मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं. Thank you.
No, I promise. No, I don't. Now, you married a superstar, then you became a superstar, she became your wife, and you continued to be a superstar. What have been the biggest challenges of such a marriage?
I think every marriage is a challenge, and I don't think mine was.
Yes.
I don't think mine was any different. But I think one of the things that has always been very admirable about Jaya is the fact that she gave preference to the home rather than her profession, though there was never any obstacle from my side. And I never objected to the fact that she would not continue to work in films. But this is a personal decision that she took, and she wanted to, set up a home.
It was her decision, or it was a joint decision?
In marriages, most decisions are taken by the wife. So it was her decision, and she said she would rather, be at home and look after the kids and set up the home for me.
Now, in 1982, you already had the love of the nation. But you, after a very scary accident, you also literally had the blood of the nation in you. How has your mind been altered with everything that your body and soul has endured?
Oh, gosh, that's a difficult question to answer because, every other year I had to land up in the ICU. Yes, 82 was a very emotional moment for me, apart from the physical aspect of my accident and what I went through medically. But I hadn't realized that there were so many people who were fond of me and who would make huge sacrifices so that I could survive. And I only came to know about that when I came out of hospital. And I had no answer for it. And I just feel that that is a huge debt that I carry. It's a very happy debt. I know I shall never be able to repay it, but I'm just thankful and very honored. And at every forum that I'm asked this question, I thank the people of this country for praying for me and for my life, and for making it possible to be here at this conclave.
Did it change you, coming back from the dead? Because you apparently, I'm told, you celebrate 2 birthdays, one on 11th October and one on 2nd August, when you literally were revived. Did it change you? Did your worldview get altered by that?
No, apart from the physical changes, nothing else. I have a mini golf course on my stomach.
I thought you only have 14 holes, not 18.
Yeah, 4 more have been added.
Oh, okay. And then there was a lag in your career for almost 10 to 15 years, which is really the death of an actor, because you joined politics, then you made some bad decisions, then you didn't really sign films, and then suddenly you were a middle-aged actor. What did you do to change the rules of the game that today you are sitting here?
I think certain circumstances arose at that point of time where I was given to understand that I didn't need to work anymore. And I took a sabbatical for a couple of years. And now that I look back, I feel that that was a mistake. And I shouldn't have done that, because a lot of water had flown under the bridge, so to say, during the time that I wasn't working. It also teaches you that you're never going to be the best. You're never going to be on top of the ladder. There'll always be somebody who's going to be younger, better than you, who will take your place. And this is quite common in sports and in our profession as well. And it takes a bit of time to understand that. I would be lying if I said that I was not comfortable with it. It was very discomforting, because you suddenly find that if you go into a public situation, you find greater attention being given to the other person than yourself, when all along your career you've been the center of attraction. And it takes a while to understand that. But I think that the sooner you understand that, the better for you as an actor. You're not going to be able to be number one. You're never going to be able to attract the kind of commercials or the public adulation. And you just want to carry on working because you enjoy the profession, without all these other tributaries that get attached to it.
And yet, you changed to a large extent the way films were being written for older actors. You were instrumental in that.
It's just, I've just been fortunate that there are still makers and writers who wish to, I'd like to use the word challenge, because that's what every job for me is what it brings forward. It brings a challenge, and it challenges me, and I like the idea of getting up in the morning and going and facing the camera and trying to do something different.
And another challenge that came, that when in the new millennium, it was finally not considered criminal to make money or to aspire to make money, you resurrected your career with the KBC. Now, I need the music for my question, please. Question is, you did KBC, A, because you saw the future of TV in India. B, no one was casting you. C, they made you an offer you couldn't refuse. Or D, you didn't want any of the Khans to do it. You can call a friend or ask the audience.
There's one option which says that I don't want to play anymore, and I would like to leave.
Casting you.
Sorry, okay. No, I think it was more, there's another history to this. Okay, I started the concept of corporatization in the film industry in 1995. It was considered to be, in the corporate language, excuse me, the sunrise industry, and something that was new for India. And we went into a lot of trouble because we didn't know how to operate the company. And we went into great amount of losses, and a lot of money was owed to many people. And most of the advisors said that these things happen in business, and when your company doesn't do well, you shut it and move on. I just felt that I didn't want to shut the company because it bore my father's name, and wanted to continue. And KBC came along at a time when I felt that here was an opportunity where I could earn this money to pay back all the creditors, and that's why I took it.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.